Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Steven Inks. And for today's video, we're going to be comparing two pens at drastically different price points, but of the same brand. So today's pen video is going to be a comparison between the Platinum Preppy, about $6-7 online, to the Platinum 3776 Century, which is about $150 to $160. How did they compare? Which one would I recommend? And can you do a drawing with a cheap pen that looks like a drawing from an expensive pen? Those are all the things we're going to check out, so I can't wait to show it to you. Here we go. Okay, here are the two pens side by side. There is more than $100 in price difference between these two, but they're from the same brand. They're from Platinum, and we've got the Platinum Preppy here, and this is in a fine, and down here is the Platinum 3776 Century, and it is in a soft fine, so it's a flexible gold nibbed pen. That being said, the nibs are somewhat similar to each other, so we're going to start with the cheap one. We're going to look at the Platinum Preppy first and just go a little overview of the parts. On my channel, I have videos about each of these pens individually, so if you want more details, you can check those out. But let's see, we've got a plastic cap. It's a snap cap, so there's a little ridge right there that the little bumps on the cap attached to. You can see those little plastic bumps right there, and there's a little spring inside the top of the cap that when you cap it, you can feel it's springy right here, and that just seals right around the edge where the feed is, and that's called a slip and seal mechanism. Platinum boasts that you could take one of these pens with a slip and seal and leave it inked for a year, and then it would write like amazingly. I've never tested that. I've never left ink in my pens for that long. That doesn't seem like a very good idea, but according to them, you can do it. Inside the body of this pen, there's a bunch of it almost looks like nutritional information on the back, but it's marked for sale in Japan, I believe, is what some of this stuff is. It's all faded. I've had this pen for well over 5 years, and the fact that it's still running and working is a pretty good thing. Another thing that you're going to note here is, let's see, the feed we have. This is filled with ink, so you have to know that I put ink in it already. We've got the same ink in each one, Platinum Carbon Black. But you can fill this with cartridges, and then there's the converter. In this case, it's a little bit controversial to some that I have a converter in this pen, because the pen, most recent check where you buy these type of pens is that you could get a Preppy for about $6, a little bit less than $6, but we'll leave it at $6 so this video doesn't age out too fast. And then this converter is actually quite expensive, between $12 and $14 depending on where you buy it. So you could buy 3 of the entire pen for one of these converters, but I find the converters to be valuable, so I keep them. This is the same mechanism that's inside of the new version of the Platinum Carbon Desk Pen, and it's also the exact same feed and nib setup as like the Platinum Plaisir. So those are going to be similar performance-wise. The price is different, and that's mostly to do with the material. This is made of very cheap plastic. Oh, another thing that should be noted about this pen is actually this converter. I did a thing with this pen with the converter, that I wouldn't recommend that you do, particularly with this kind of pen, that I swapped it between different pens. So some of the more expensive Platinum pens, such as my 3776 Century and even my Platinum Curidas, when you've had a converter on this pen right here, it doesn't fit those expensive pens anymore, like the connection point on the pen is like wider or something. So it actually stretches out the little plastic membrane on the inside of the converter. So if you get one of these converters, and they're the exact same converter, I've bought this converter so many times. It's actually a really great converter because you can take it apart and clean it and stuff. But this video is not about the converter. But basically you can't switch between pens. So you need to get one for each of your pens. Don't be like me. I actually struggled a little bit to find the converter that would fit back on my 3776, and I will not be switching it out again. So that's this pen. And we're going to do a little bit of rankings here. So it's the wrong one. So I have this rubric, this grade that I'm going to do here, and these are the categories that I'm looking at: aesthetics, comfort, reliability, durability, and then value for money. We're going to arrange these in a point order: 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, 4 points. We'll get the full points here. And then at the end, I'll look at that compared to the 3776, and I'll tell you what my preference would be if I could only own one of these pens. So for the aesthetics, I honestly think, I think that the aesthetics are not good, but, was working well this morning. All right, here we go. I honestly think the aesthetics are not good because, I don't know, it's just kind of a little bit ugly. It's a plastic pen. It's see-through. It's got the calories and saturated fat on the back, like I said before. I don't know what the design aesthetic is in here, but I think it's designed to be cheap and easy to move quickly. So I don't fault it for that, but it's just not very pretty. Comfort, I would say acceptable. I'm gonna even go with a fantastic because it is comfortable to hold, and the cap posts so you can have a longer reach with your arms. That's good. Reliability, I'm gonna say fantastic for reliability as well. I've had this pen for many years and it's good. It flows whenever I need it to, except for a minute ago. Just ignore that. Durability, I'm gonna say not good, not terrible either, but not good because I've had several of these pens before. It is a plastic pen. It's kind of one step above disposable. I've had the plastic cap crack right here. I've had the slip and seal kind of get, there's a lot of space for that to squeeze out. I mentioned the thing about the converter, and this part right here not coming out. It's really hard to clean sort of that feed area. So it's not a really enduring pen. If you want your pens to not break down, I would recommend spending a little more money than that on your pen, but this is a really good entry point pen. So value for money is actually fantastic. I think you get a working fountain pen that can take a converter and all of these things for, like I said, about $5. So that's pretty good. So we've got 12. Their total score for this pen is 16. So not a bad score. I almost want to say reliability. You know what? I'm gonna call an audible here because I'm getting, and I have had to do this before, I'm getting some flow issues particularly with Platinum Carbon Black. So I'm gonna say that the reliability is acceptable rather than fantastic. So that puts me at a score of 15. Okay. But it's a really good score out of 20. So 15 out of 20. I'll just put that here so that we know. I like this pen. I have some critical things to say, but I do like it. Let's look at the Platinum 3776 Century. So what you've got here is a black pen with gold accents. I should say gold colored accents. It feels nice and significant. It's not like heavy, but it definitely feels like it's made of something nice. And even though this is technically, when they call it a resin, it's technically a plastic. It's a petroleum-derived substance, but it feels nicer. I don't know how to describe that to somebody who's never held a pen like this before and compared it to, say, a pen like this, but this plastic and this plastic do not feel the same. So yeah, there's that. This does have, if we can get a focus in, this does have a 14 karat gold nib. Got that signature kind of iconic heart-shaped breather hole. I got a bit of nib creep, which is something that happens with both of these pens. It may have to do with them being sort of fine nibbed pens. A nice little arch to the feed, and these feeds and nib units are very different from each other, which is a good thing. You see that's not always the case. And then, yeah, it says Japan on the side here in little tiny letters. And it's a soft fine, so there's a little bit of flex to this nib. Gold band, gold band, gold band, gold band, gold clip, gold nib. And this nib is actual gold, but these other accents are, of course, are gold-colored metal. But looks very nice to me. I think it just looks fantastic. If I open it up, we've got the same converter in there. The expense for the converter is a little bit more justifiable with a pen that costs, according to my most recent search on the internet, you could get one of these for between $140 $160, depending on the model. And of course, there are other nibs and fits that are going to be more or less expensive, but the soft fine is a pretty common one, I think. So that's what that looks like. And this has always been a consistent starter for me. Never had any issues with it. It is a screw cap, which I think is a more enduring and durable method of attaching the cap, because the parts of a snap cap like the Platinum Preppy has can really fall apart, and that creates some issues. So let's look at the 3776 Century. All right. So aesthetics, I think the aesthetics are fantastic. This is a beautiful pen. Obviously, if you're looking at this and you're like, I think it's ugly, then obviously that doesn't work for you. But for me, this is what I imagine when I think of a fancy pen. Something like this. Yeah. Comfort, it is very comfortable. Again, it posts nice. There's a little bit of an edge here. So I'm not sure what I want to do with that. I'm going to come back to comfort because it is comfortable. I've never felt like it was uncomfortable, but definitely if this wasn't as big of a lip right here between the threads and the body, I would find it more comfortable. Reliability, super reliable. Durability, again, I mentioned this is just made of better stuff. And this is something that you wouldn't be ashamed to kind of have a nibsmith look at, because you paid enough money for it that it's worth it to have someone fix it if something goes wrong with it. It's my opinion anyway. So I'm actually going to give this a fantastic for durability and value for the money. This pen has a lot to live up to as far as value for the money because of how expensive it is. But also if you consider this gold nib over here, there's a lot of, as far as gold nib pens go, this is one of the more budget, kind of starter budget pens that you could get. So honestly, I think it's a fantastic, and I hate to be a little bit of a fanboy here, but I'm coming back to comfort. I'm going to give it an acceptable. I'll take the notch for this right here, but I really don't think that's very uncomfortable. But I am giving it a fantastic for value for money because I think this pen is, if you've got the budget for it, I think this pen is worth it. So yeah, those are my opinions. And so that's actually a 19 out of 20, and I can feel it when I wrote 19 out of 20 on this paper. I could feel the smoothness of this nib and the fact that it just wanted to make lines. So that's super comfortable. It's fun. And I would say, obviously you don't want to walk around with a $150, $200 pen just in your pocket going out about the town. And maybe you do, but I wouldn't. I don't take this outside of the house with me very often. So you do need to have a knock-around pen. And this is a fantastic pen to have that's a knock-around put it in a bag, take it out sketching, take it on a trip with you, don't worry about what happens to it kind of pen. So they both have their place, and to be honest, I'm very happy that I own both of them. However, if I could only have one, it would be this one. I do feel, and I know that seems very silly. Of course, the more expensive one is nicer, but there are a few pens I'm going to go over in this series where I don't feel that the most expensive one is the one that I would want if I could only have that one. But in this case, with the 3776, it's just a job well done. It's nice, it feels nice, it definitely feels like it's worth that much more than its cheaper counterpart. And again, I'm glad I own both of these, and if you're in the market for something like this, you could certainly afford something like this as well. You could probably buy a couple Platinum Preppies just on the tax you would pay for a 3776 Century. But anyway, those are my thoughts on that. We have, again, for the Preppy, it is a 15 out of 20, a very good score. And for the 3776 Century, it is a 19 out of 20. Just all around a wonderful pen. So now we're going to draw with it, and let's see what we end up with. Time for some lines. So this is, of course, the Platinum Preppy. And let's talk about what it can do. First of all, we can see a somewhat, I don't know, stilted flow. Is that even a word? It has a slow flow. It doesn't keep up as well. You're gonna see, let's just check in real quick. There's some dry areas in that line right there, and so we're kind of thinking about that when we're doing these lines here. Yeah. We've got our forward. We've got our reverse. And if we're looking at those two things together, we'll see there is a line variance there that is useful. You could see that within the lines themselves, they're not entirely even in flow, and that is kind of what you get when you have a cheaper pen. So just do a little quick shapes thing, but not to get too deep into it. So like at the normal speed in which I draw, you can see that this is totally fine. There's nothing really necessarily wrong about this pen. It's just that you can definitely see the difference in what it's capable of doing for its price point. You have to be realistic about that. All right, so that is the Preppy. And let's talk about the 3776. All right, right out of the gate, you can kind of see the difference between what these two things put out, and part of that has to do with the soft fine nib, but there are some similarities as well. So let's not get too in the woods. Let's start playing around with some things here. I did have a little dry spot right there, but that also has to do with the fact that it's more of a hard start than a flow issue. So if you look at the speed at which I can flow here, and I can also push down a little more and get more ink. So down here at the bottom, I'm putting more ink out. Look at the difference between the two. you could really see that there is definitely a difference in what this pen can do to keep up. So I'm just gonna write keeps up. All right, and then we've got forward. I'm gonna do a couple of versions of forward. That's as far as I'll push that nib. You can see that the soft fine, and you'll see some feathering on this paper. It's cheap paper. It's not the pen's fault. It's the paper's fault. Definitely that comes with some darker lines to begin with. And we've got the forward versus the reverse. Now, reverse writing on this is downright unpleasant and almost unusable, but I'm just going to say that this is not a pen for reverse writing. But you can get line variance, which is the purpose of reverse writing, by just giving it more downward pressure. So I'm not going to fault it on that one, but look, you can see here, as we get in, there's some feathering down at the bottom there where there's more ink, and it has more to do with the paper than anything else. Like I said, reverse writing is almost nothing. What's it like to draw with this thing? Let's do some quick shapes here. And this is a pleasure to draw with. It's just so responsive. It is worth it if you have the money to spend on a nicer instrument. I believe that is true. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have this channel. I would just be using all of the cheap ones. Not that there's anything necessarily wrong with cheap ones. They're doing some construction outside. I don't know if you can hear that, but yeah. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with using a cheaper instrument, but you need to be aware of its limitations. At the end of the day, I don't know, you tell me, when it comes to drawing, does this look that much worse than this? I have a feeling, to me, it's very similar. But I think we should see it in a long form drawing. So let's check that out. Before we get into the drawing, I'm actually going to show you the drawing because I drew half of this drawing with the Platinum Preppy and half with the 3776 Century. Can you tell which part of this drawing was made with an expensive pen and which with a cheap one? No cheating. Guess now, it's going to show up on the screen. Were you surprised? All right, let's look at drawing it. Okay, so you saw that drawing, right? Like, it's kind of impressive what this Platinum Preppy can do. Even though I have made a definitive decision as far as which pen I highly recommend, and also, you know, which one I would have if I could only own one of these pens, excuse me. I'm really glad that I don't have to choose which of these two pens I own because the Platinum Preppy, this little underdog of a pen, really just continued to blow my mind throughout drawing this. I felt like it wasn't going to be possible for me to really draw something that that would continue to look the same, even though I switched up the writing instrument and changed the price point by over $100. But I mean, you could see it, that it's practically seamless. So if it's really just about, at the end of the day, what kind of cool drawings you can make, you do not have to spend a lot of money to just get started trying to do some amazing things. So like there's that to say just right off the bat. I have to make sure that I say that. However, the other flip side of this, and the reason why I said what I said, holding the 3776 Century in my hand and using it, it just glides across the paper. Even the cheap paper that I have in my sketchbook, It makes lines. You put it down, it just makes the lines. There's no need to go over the lines. It's like a brush to the paper. It's a really beautiful drawing experience. So, it shouldn't really come as a surprise to anyone that you pay more and you get quality. But in this case, really, like if you want to experience a pen on a different level and you can afford to do so, the 3776 is a fantastic choice. And I am planning on doing more with this series. Like I'm planning on doing a lot of other pens, as I have some higher budget models of different pens in my collection that I'd like to compare. And I'm glad I started with this Platinum one, because these are, and I mean this in all seriousness, these are two of my favorite pens, and they just happen to be from the same company, and one of them happens to be really expensive and the other one happens to be really cheap. And they're both a solid choice. I highly recommend them. Honestly, if you were going in to get your very first pen, if you had a lot of money and you wanted to spend it, I don't think that the 3776 Century is a bad choice. If you, of course, are budget conscious, you're the classic starving artist, the Platinum Preppy will get you where you need to go. So, two good pens that I'm glad I own, and that apparently can draw at about the same level. So, yeah, that is what it is for this particular video. Thank you for joining me, and hope you enjoyed my drawing. For final thoughts, I will say this pen held up very well against this one at about 1/20th the price, so about 5% the price of this pen. We're ending up with a pen that can do a lot and can hold its own against this one. I will admit this one does feel more cheap. It doesn't feel as good to hold in the hand. That's probably pretty obvious, but to the point that I do still love this 3776 Century. I do recommend it, but I also recommend a pen like this, and for a completely different use case. To be honest, I'm more likely to take this one outside of the house with me and use it and not be worried about it, whereas this one pretty much stays in my house at my desk in my fancy pen box so that I can keep it safe and protected. I would be devastated if something happened to this pen, whereas this one right here, it's more rough and tumble. I could take it places. So what are your thoughts? Do you own one or both of these pens? Do you share my opinion? Do you have a different opinion? Please let me know in the comments below. Check out my channel, like and subscribe to this video if you found it valuable. Go to my website, steveninks.com, and check out my book, What Kind of Pen Is This? You could download it for free from there. And I hope you're having a wonderful day. I can't wait to show you the next video I got for you.